I beg your pardon. Aren't you Guy Haines? My name is Bruno Anthony. Want to hear one of my ideas for a perfect murder? Two fellows meet accidentally. No connection between them at all. Never saw each other before. Each one has somebody that he'd like to get rid of. So, they swap murders. Crisscross.
Three Films and a Podcast has no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode. All film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders and is used solely with the intent of film criticism, commentary, and education under fair use law. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Three Films and a Podcast, the show where three friends work their way through new unseen movies to them through a unique round of choosing movies. Today, as always, we have with us Tyler up in Portland.
Hello, everybody.
We have Matthew Weiler, full name, down in Pleasant Grove.
Yeah, hi.
Oh,
The full
hello.
legal. Yeah, hello, Matt. We're recording.
Hello. And as you can see, we have a very special guest with us, Miss Ashley Hutchins.
Hi.
And
The MVP.
the
in the
MVP
flesh.
is here to defend her title, even though this isn't a watch party. But today we are going over our last movie in the Hitchcock round. We're talking about 1951's Strangers on a Train, which was my pick. I think this Hitchcock round has been a lot of fun. I know we're going to talk about it, towards the end of the episode, but I was really glad to have picked this movie because this one kind of felt like the one that I had heard about the most, but that I wasn't very familiar with at all. Had I known that I hadn't seen it, maybe I would have picked Vertigo, but I'm glad we watched that anyway, even though I thought I had watched it before. So, but I had a great time with Strangers on a Train. Let's just get into the episode. Matt, will you kind of give us a rundown of what the movie's about?
I would love to. Okay. I mean, if you're listening, we're going to do this exercise. We do this every episode. Just kidding. It's the first time we're doing it. Close your eyes. It's 1951. Your parents are just a twinkle in your grandparents' eyes. And depending on when your parents are born, this might be the night. But meanwhile, your grandparents are going to the movies. They're arguing on whether they go see Disney's Alice in Wonderland or Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train. And since it's 1951, your grandpa wins. And they go see Strangers on a Strangers on a Train, not Strangers on a Things.
Strangers on a Things. Coming to Netflix. Season 4.
Strangers on a Things. Oh, okay.
Coming to a Walmart bargain bin near you. Strangers on
It's
the
already
Things.
there. Yeah. It's been there for 20 years. This is chronologically in the middle of Hitchcock's career. He had just, so many movies coming out. But this movie stars Guy Haines, who, if you're unfamiliar with this movie and these actors, it's Guy Haines is the character, Farley Granger is the actor, and he's kind of a James Franco type. I don't know if you guys have a better comparison, just trying to help people imagine this.
I think it's pretty spot on.
He's a mid-major tennis pro, maybe bigger, but everybody knows who he is. And he's on a train and he meets Bruno Anthony, and that's played by Robert Walker, who is kind of a Mark Rylance type.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that. That's who I kept thinking of the whole time.
I know, same here.
Right.
And I was
I
trying
don't
to
even know who that is.
I don't either.
It's
We're going to see him in Ready Player One because
Right.
he's the main guy.
Okay.
But he's done stuff with Spielberg. He did Bridge of Spies. Oh, he's in Dunkirk. He's the guy
was
on
just
the
gonna
boat.
say, yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's the
Oh, I
older
like
dude on the
boat
boat.
guy.
Yeah, that's him.
Nice. Okay, yeah.
So they're on a train, and Bruno brings up this crazy, bizarre murder for murder idea that he came up with. He's just like bothering guy. He comes up to guys like, "Hey, I love your tennis. Like, you're a great tennis player." And he's like, "By the way, I see that you're getting divorced. Maybe if you want to kill your wife, I can do it, and you can kill my dad."
Mm.
And that's how he introduces himself, basically.
I feel like
and
Bruno subscribed to whatever version of TMZ there was back in the day. It was like,
totally.
he's having a rocky relationship and dating someone else. Let me
probably
figure
what he
out.
was reading on the train.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is perfect. Anyway, the movie basically goes that route. Bruno obviously is a pretty unhinged, not all there character, and you can imagine what would happen if he thought that they had come to some agreement that they hadn't. And that's the journey that Hitchcock takes us on.
Yeah, I before, the movie's called Strangers on a Train, and I knew nothing about it. I assumed it was going to be them on the train the entire time.
Mhm.
So I was happy that I just, the way that it all went down, I thought was really cool, because I thought that once I saw what was happening and Bruno's propositioning Guy, maybe in more than one way, I lost my train of thought because you guys didn't laugh at my joke.
Train.
Maybe you guys didn't quite catch it. Maybe it wasn't a good joke. That's okay. No, I just assumed that it was going to be the whole thing with, like, I thought Guy was going to immediately agree with Bruno and they were going to try and actually do this thing on the train somehow. So I liked the way that it went. It was way more fun, I think, to have it be something that Guy wasn't actually trying to do. It was took this like psychological turn. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought we were getting like a Murder on the Orient Express type, who done it thing. So yeah, it was cool though. I liked it a lot. Like, it's, subverted my expectations. But yeah, I mean, Matt, you mentioned this came out, this kicked off his 50s, which, like, pulling up his IMDb, we got like Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, The Man Who Knew Too Much, and the two that we already watched, Vertigo and North by Northwest. Like, all these are from the 50s. I mean, he really, I think, kind of hit his prime. The 40s has obviously some great stuff. Notorious Rope, Rebecca, things like that. But I think the 50s and then 1960 is Psycho. So it's like just on the tail end there. He was really, I think, in his bag, as the kids like to say, in the 50s. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't know.
We have no idea. Yeah. One thing I wanted to go over, though, is just like some of Hitchcock's like classic visual techniques, because we see a few of those in this movie. One that we saw a lot in Vertigo was the Dutch angle, where the camera's kind of like at a 30-degree angle. That usually kind of signifies something bad is about to happen to our character. And we saw it here when Guy gets home and Bruno's across the street, like whispering to him through the gate.
Guy. Guy. Over here, Guy.
Which I think was also like a cool parallel for, being behind bars or whatever. So we saw that. He's obviously really good. We've talked about his real-time tension that he can cause, by letting things just play out. And for me, the best moment of this was the tennis match, because, Guy's trying to get out of there. He's like, oh, I'll hurry and beat him and go. But like, he has to go to 5 sets. And we're also crisscross, like, cutting the whole time to Bruno, who lost the lighter, right? Like down the grate. So they're both going through their own kind of like tension and stress. But it's just so weird, because I think in most sports things, it's like, oh, who's going to win or whatever, but no one cares about that. It's just like, let's just get this over with. Like, he's just got to get out of here. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to bring some tension into it. And then this movie also was really good about basically, again, like crisscross, like the cutting between our two characters. The intro, we see both of them coming out of the car. We see their shoes, whatever. And even throughout the movie, there's, we'll have a character who asks what the time is. And then we cut to the other character who's miles away and he's looking at his watch. Or, one says, I could strangle her. And then the other one is like making the strangling motions with his hands.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
Don't worry about it.
Foreshadowing.
I could strangle her. But it's just so interesting. I mean, we started watching the Hitchcock Truffaut documentary. It's a really great book, and there was a part in there where Truffaut was like just talking about the structure of the film and all the duplicates and the duos and all that kind of stuff. And Hitchcock's response was like, isn't it a fascinating design? One could study it forever. I'm like, that's so like confident, of somebody to say, but that guy knows what he's doing, and he's 100% correct. So I don't know, he's the master of suspense, and rightfully so. But, we've all watched all three of these movies. I was kind of curious if there were any similarities or, kind of like tie-ins between the three that any of you guys noticed that kind of like carried over, because Hitchcock, I feel like he's the kind of guy where you put on his movie and who it is. So I'm just kind of curious what you guys noticed, and also, who's our best comparison today as far as the director goes. I know it's hard, to live up to Hitchcock, but who's kind of doing that stuff today? And I'd like to pass that off to you.
Okay. Let's see here. The couple of things that I noticed that it wasn't in all three, but it was in North by Northwest and also Strangers on a Train. We talked about it where the guy was hanging off the cliff, and then was it Martin Landau? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Like steps on his fingers, and that's such a common thing that we see in movies now, but that was, so long ago. So I have to wonder if that wasn't the first time we saw that. And then in the carousel scene where guy's like hanging on, and then Bruno again is like kicking at his hand, trying to like make him lose his grip. And it's very specific.
Yeah. But
I feel like the first time I saw that was in Batman, when Joker's just stepping on his fingers to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can think of. So for me, that was the genesis of it, and it went back in time and made its way into Hitchcock, even though I know it really happened the other way around.
But also, we didn't get like necessarily the stepping on the fingers, but the same fear of falling or letting go was all of what Vertigo is about, so it really kind of carries over to all three. The guy loved to let people fall in his movies. But as someone who has a fear of heights that Tyler can attest to on our mountainsides in Kenya, it's like, you go shoot that stuff. I don't want to get within 30 feet of the edge there.
But I got you up there.
Yeah, you did. We were there, but like that stuff really like resonates with me. And I feel like if I was directing horror movies or thrillers, like that would be my same thing, just like the fear of falling. But what about you, Tyler? Like, what kind of stuff do you think carried through all three of these?
Yeah, I know we talked about it in the last episode quite a bit, but I just love his dedication to alcohol and how important it is in his worlds. And I don't know if that's a Hitchcock thing or a 1950s thing or an American thing or all of the above, but it just stuck out that it was just like every scene, it felt like had some sort of alcohol in it. And to me, I wrote on our little sheet that chance encounters were the thing that carried through. Vertigo being an exception there, but all three of these films seem to hinge on some sort of encounter with people with plans, right? Someone not expecting to be a part of someone else's plan and getting thrown into it. So I guess that's just the randomness of life or whatever, like he likes to take things that ostensibly could happen and then create something terrible out of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely the thing I noticed. And I don't know if we're doing comparisons yet or not, but
let's throw it all out.
The only one I could really think of, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask for this because I guess I just don't have the recall or the cinema knowledge, but the first one that popped in my head, or the only one that popped in my head, was Jordan Peele with and made specifically because of the suspenseful nature of his films compared to Hitchcock, and just the level of craft and the depth to the storytelling, specifically visually storytelling. To me, that's the easiest comparison. I know when we watched Us, Alex and I watched Us, and then we watched just almost an equal amount of YouTube videos talking about the symbolism and the breakdowns and everything. And that's it's you can tell when you're watching the movie, even though you're not picking it up consciously. You can tell when you're watching a Jordan Peele movie that there's a lot going on, and you're taking in things that you don't even recognize. And then it's the same thing with Hitchcock. Although I don't mean this in like as a slight to Hitchcock, maybe more so just like a commentary on the availability of where we were at in filmmaking and storytelling. But it seems like there's less going on in a Hitchcock movie, but only because like he has, Hitchcock is building on what came before him, and Jordan Peele builds on what came before him, and you're able to pack more in because you have more knowledge or experience or whatever. But
yeah,
I
think that totally makes, Jordan Peele, if you think about it, like with Get Out, like he had 60 plus years of movies in between Strangers on a Train and Get Out, to like reference,
right.
And especially like you said with Us, like that opening scene where we see all the VHSs that are next to the TV, they're just like literally like telling you what we're going to be talking or watching in this movie, like
right.
The cannibal, like human underground dwellers, like Chud wasn't out when Hitchcock was making movies, so
yeah.
But I also I got thinking about that a lot while watching this documentary. I'm like, I wonder what Hitchcock would be doing today. And I feel like it's the same thing. You build off what came before you. And I'm maybe
right.
amazed to see what he could do today. Matt, how about you? What similarities did you see in the three, and who's the Hitchcock right now?
Yeah, similarly to, kind of what's already been mentioned, like I think Tyler said, like just kind of like these like common fears or discomforts. The fear of heights, in North by Northwest, like this, like totally random, like you get mistaken identity, and then in this one, it's like you meet a total psycho, on the train, and all of a sudden, like you're intertwined in this like murder plot. Like these are things that you wouldn't normally necessarily worry about, but now all of a sudden you're seeing it happen. And it's like, oh shoot, I got to watch out who I'm talking to.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't talk to anyone on a train, public transportation or airplanes or any of that, and maybe not because I'm worried about they're gonna be a murderer, but you never know what you're gonna get with people, man. And Hitchcock can drill right into the meat of that.
Yeah, and I think I didn't think of Jordan Peele right off the bat, but I think he fits perfectly, like Tyler said. And Jordan Peele kind of like has his recipe. He's got sort of like this horror suspense, but also like like he almost has like some comedic stuff in there, and then it's always very themey.
By the way, I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could.
Yeah.
And so I felt like Jordan Peele's like, he is kind of like, to me, like a modern day Hitchcock. And the thing is, Hitchcock has some humor himself, like
for sure.
There's some really funny stuff in there. And honestly, like this movie basically was remixed and remade in the mid 90s, and it was The Cable Guy,
Yeah.
That's
a really good call.
I thought about that. I forgot about that. I remember thinking that.
Yeah.
And you're spot on.
Like, especially when he goes to like the table and there's Bruno sitting with like his family. Yeah. It's like, this is just like The Cable Guy.
You guys play here too?
It's really kind of its own little subgenre, like single white female and swim fan, just kind of like this obsessive person kind of worms their way into somebody's life and just takes it over and gaslights everyone.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I love those movies.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Speaking of like worming your way in, the director that I thought of, it was mainly due to like his composition and the way that he uses the camera to tell the story. But I think, some of the movies he's made, I could see Hitchcock making as well. And that's Bong Joon-ho, with Parasite, with Mother. We watched The Host. And like, they're like thrillers, but they're not necessarily like horror movies. So I feel like it kind of falls. Like I could easily see Hitchcock making Parasite. Like, like it's
for sure.
easy enough, for that comparison to be made. So that's kind of what I thought of. I'm not super well versed on Bong Joon-ho, like seen that in Snowpiercer and stuff, but I don't know. That was the first guy I thought of. I'm like, he knows how to use the camera. He knows how to compose a shot. And also just to like we talked about before, have everyday people, kind of be our main either villain or just like who we're here with. It doesn't have to be anyone spectacular, so to speak. But speaking of having humor in there, I just want to say like my favorite thing from North by Northwest, I think, is when the cops take him to the precinct and he's like, "Thanks for the ride, fellas." It's like he's got some real humor in there. Oh, he's so good.
It reminded me of I feel like I reference Rick and Morty so much on this show, but there's a part where Rick and Morty they're being killed or something, and they're cracking off one-liners, and they talk. Rick even says, "Oh, we're getting some good hits in while we're being choked to death." I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's what North by Northwest reminded me. I kept thinking that, like, man, he's getting some real shots in.
Yeah,
you know?
He's going out, just like let it go. But getting back to Strangers on a Train, I wanted to talk about. Do you have something to say?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Nope. We're moving on.
Well, I didn't throw into, or I didn't get to say my.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, who's your director?
I'm embarrassed. I can't remember his name, but he did Hereditary and
Ari Aster.
Yes, Ari. I was thinking Rory.
That's his brother, Rory Aster.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do cross the line into a little bit more like horror and like grotesqueness, but I've seen both of those movies multiple times, and every time I'm like nervous.
Yeah.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I
think like Alex and I started watching Midsommar, but we stopped for some reason. I was actually into it, but anyways.
I loved Midsommar, and I think Hitchcock could do that too, because it's like it's the thriller movie, but it's all during the day, and normally all these horror movies you have to like the element of nighttime and stuff, but this is just like bright lights the whole time, and it's still a real thriller. So yeah, I think I think Ari Aster is a great comparison as well.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
Okay, so okay. So back to Strangers on a Train. I wanted to talk about Bruno a little bit. When Truffaut and Hitchcock were talking, they got to Strangers on a Train. Truffaut said to Hitchcock, like, one sense is that you prefer the villain. And Hitchcock's response was, "Oh, naturally." And I mean, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? There's so many times, like, I mean, obviously the first example that comes to my mind is the Joker, just because how charismatic he was in like The Dark Knight. And you're just like, you're attached to him, at least like seeing what he does, not necessarily that you like him or anything, but like the villains are always kind of exciting. If you have a bad villain, what's the point of the movie, but I just wanted to talk about that. Like, why are the villains so much more intriguing? What makes us like them? Like, how did you feel about Bruno? Because I felt the same way during like the party, when he's like, "Oh, how would you kill someone?" I was like, oh, he's like worming his way into this guy's life. But I was still charmed by it. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on how we feel about villains?
Well, this villain in particular, I think, is really magnetic, and I think for whatever reason, I think casting plays a huge part in good villains, and this guy's backstory is insane. Robert Walker, right? Mm-hmm. So he looked familiar, and I was trying to figure out where I knew him from, and I noticed, fun fact, he was born in Salt Lake.
Interesting.
That is fun. I remember. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
And then he died when he was like 32. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That's so young. What happened? And I got reading about it, and this guy had a wild life. Like, he had some severe behavioral issues when he was in school and got expelled from school multiple times. He got married and had this really toxic, tumultuous relationship with his wife. And then she kind of like left him for this other filmmaker. And,
whoa.
And then he was
Alfred
like...
Hitchcock.
Just kidding. I can't think of his name. It starts with an S. I'm awful with names.
Steven Spielberg?
No.
No, okay. Soderbergh.
So she kind of left him for this other man, and he agreed to be in a film with her directed by this guy. He was just like he tortured himself, drove himself crazy. He had to be hospitalized. And then after this movie came out, he was like in the middle of an episode. Like, he was upset, and his secretary called his psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist came over and, like, to calm him down, gave him some sort of injection to like mellow things out. And because he'd been drinking earlier in the day, like, he OD'd, and that's how he died.
Oh, wow.
So like, this unhinged character, I think I have to assume that like he brought in so much reality from his own life that like it transformed the entire thing.
Yeah, it'd be hard not to. Yeah, it would be hard not
Seriously.
to if you're playing something so dark. and you have so much stark material to work with, like you use it if you've got it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, and everyone else in this movie is so boring, I thought,
Yeah.
except for the other villain, Miriam.
Mhm.
I loved her. She's like this dorky girl with these huge ass glasses.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then she's just like, oh, I'm going to go have a three-way in the tunnel of love.
Yeah.
I'm going to fake a pregnancy. I'm going to steal your money and not get divorced from you.
Classic Miriam.
But like, they're just so interesting. And then Guy is boring. It's like, oh, who
So
cares about
boring.
this guy who plays tennis for a living?
Milquetoast.
And then Anne, oh, my dad's a senator and he doesn't care if I'm having a public affair with this tennis pro.
No, yeah.
They're just so much more interesting. Like, Guy and Anne are very forgettable.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree. What are your thoughts, Matt?
No, I think one thing that's interesting about villains to me, at least good villains, are I like it when they don't try to like give a villain a set of rules. I think that's what makes them more interesting is when they don't have a set of rules, when you can kind of do whatever you want with them. I think especially today with like comic book movies where we're working with like archetypes and villains and stuff like that, where like we almost try to give them like rules to follow, like, oh, this villain would never do that because he believes this. But to me, that's less interesting because it takes away so much of it takes away a lot of the surprise. Like you had no idea what Bruno was going to do in this movie.
Right.
He's like, and that scene where they're at the tennis match and like everyone's looking back and forth and you just see Bruno staring, like that was like tripping me out. It's like, what's going to happen? What's this guy going to do next?
That's my favorite shot of the whole movie.
Oh, it's so good.
I love that shot.
So good.
And it's like, they're not villains, but it's comparable to the Ocean's 11 shot, you know, when the hotels are blowing up and then Danny and Linus keep watching Terry up on the stage, but everyone else turns around to watch it blow up. I feel like this was like a direct reflection, or that was a direct reflection of this from the tennis match. I loved that shot so much.
I'm glad you mentioned the Ocean's 11 shot, because when I saw the tennis shot, it immediately blew me away, even though I forgot to mention it in my Letterboxd review. I had to go back and edit it, but I knew I'd seen that somewhere else and I couldn't remember where. And it makes sense that it was Ocean's 11 since I've seen it recently, but it's very effective, man, because you naturally try to follow the eyes of the person that's on your screen. And when there's so many eyes and they're all doing one thing, but one person's not, it really trips you out. It messes with your head. And it's really cool stuff, man. Hitchcock. He's cool.
Yeah, way cool. But yeah, so
Hot
Bruno.
Hitchcock is cool. Hitchcock. Cool.
Come to Three Films Pod for our hot takes. Hitchcock's good.
Hitchcock
is cool. But yeah, I mean, Bruno, you know, very little regard for human life. Makes me wonder if Tom Morello and Zach De La Rocha were listening to or watching this movie when they wrote How I Could Just Kill a Man. You know.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier, Matt, you and I, about Falcon the Winter Soldier and just the idea.
Hold on. Spoilers. I haven't seen the latest episode yet.
No, this is not. Yeah, just about, I mean, essentially superheroes in general, but we get a lot of stuff, you know, like with Black Panther or the first Iron Man's, like we just get the evil version of whoever our hero is. You know, we just like the mirror, like, oh, this is the bad guy. It's like, it's just not that interesting. Like, they kind of have the same skills. This guy just wants something different. Like, it's not that fun. Whereas in this case, you know, or I think in just other good movies, it's like if the villain has a I don't know, almost like an Agent of Chaos kind of thing. You know, it's like there's no real rhyme or reason, or they're willing to do anything. Like, they don't have the morals of like, oh, well, they won't go this far. It's like, no, if you're a bad guy, like, you got to be willing to do whatever it takes. And I think, I don't know who the actor was. I'm sure a lot of them have said that, but you know, the best thing, you know, when it comes to playing a villain is just feeling like you yourself are the good guy. Like, you really believe in your reason. And I think that's what makes a good villain. Someone who is just like really dedicated to what they want and they're willing to go to any lengths to make it happen, you know, including to like, you know, showing up at dinner parties or, you know, the tennis match with the family. Like, you'll throw yourself in just to, you know, mess with the other guy. So
yeah, it keeps the audience guessing. Well, I remember like, so and this is not throwing any shade on the Marvel movies because I absolutely love them, if anyone knows me. But my son, after watching Infinity War, after spoilers, Thanos kills Gamora and he's like crying, like Tommy was like so confused.
Mhm.
He was like, wait, but he feels bad. And is he good? I'm like, no, a good bad guy, there's no question he's bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're not confusing the audience at all. You're not trying to necessarily sympathize. I know that's a thing right now where you sympathize with the bad guy, but I really just like where they just keep you guessing the whole time. You have no idea what to expect, what this person's going to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I was blown like I remember nothing about this film other than Bruno Antony. And that's not true. I do remember a lot of this film, most of it. But when I think about it, I just think of Bruno. He's incredible. And I'm surprised this, like I was thinking about him, like he's on my list of like creepiest creeps in films, you know, like I'd put him up there with like Anton Chigurh and some of the other, like the Joker, you know, some of the, because of like what's Matt's saying is like, they don't seem to have any rules. You don't know what to expect out of them.
Yeah.
And they're like magnetic, like for whatever reason, you want to see what they're going to do, even though you're like terrified of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of like, that's why people gravitate towards, or the reason why people gravitate towards a villain is the same reason that we would be enthralled by a Hitchcock movie or a story so suspenseful, right? Is it's just like, it's more interesting than real life. I mean, real life is you talk to the guy on the train and he's just kind of annoying and then you never see him again. And, you know, obviously in this movie, it's much different than that. So there's just that little bit of intrigue, like what could happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like what could be behind, like what could be this guy's motivations. And then when we see a villain play out on screen, that is, you know, if Bruno talked to you on the train, you'd probably talk to him and you probably would like him because he's weird, he's quirky, he's funny. And you just be like, well, who's that guy? You would talk about him forever, you know? And then unfortunately, he becomes a huge part of your life in this movie. But I don't know. I was blown away by Robert Walker. I was really sad to learn that he passed away early. I didn't know the depth of it. So thank you, Ashley, for keeping me abreast. But yeah, I think my favorite shot of Bruno, I just loved how Bruno was always, as soon as you met him, he was always in the back of your mind. You know, even when he was on screen, obviously he's in the forefront, but he's always there. Like, what is Bruno going to do next? Where is he? What's he doing? And the shot of him standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial as Guy gets into the car and drives away. Like, to me, that actually comes to mind before the tennis shot, because it was just so, I mean, he's on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, right? And it's such a grand scene and it's so well framed, but you're drawn to Bruno, like despite where they are and despite like he overshadows and overpowers the location, which is pretty incredible considering the location, right? Like it to me, despite just being like a cool backdrop and a cool frame, it was showing like, here's how powerful this person's presence is in our story, because who cares about everything else behind him? And actually, that's another thing that I noticed we talked about is Hitchcock's use of important landmarks, important American landmarks. I forgot to mention that earlier. But.
And I think this one was used so specifically and so well because we didn't get a close shot of Bruno at all. Like, we're far away from him the whole time, but you know exactly who that is.
You know, yeah.
But it's like, yeah, he's surrounded by this huge monument, but at the same time, like, he's the focus of the screen.
He almost seemed bigger than what he was standing next to, which is pretty incredible.
That's crazy. Do you have any favorite Bruno moments?
I rewatched it today, and I don't know if it's my favorite moment, but it stuck out to me as interesting because it showed us sort of early on his relationship with his parents and his mom and his dad.
So weird.
And it's like, I don't understand. I mean, his dad's not exactly nice, but I don't know if he's worthy to be murdered.
Yeah.
But then, you know, his mom, she's obviously a little bit unhinged because she's like so obsessed with painting. and you know, she shows him what she's working on, and
So
it's
good.
like this insane thing, and he starts laughing immediately, and he's like, "Oh, you captured Dad perfectly," and she's like, "Oh, I was painting St. Francis or something." So it's like you know, he comes from a family of mental issues, so I thought that was really interesting.
How about you, Matt? Do you have any favorite Bruno? I was kind of on the fly here, but I'm kind of curious what everyone's favorites were.
Well, I think I really love what directors did with black and white film, with lighting, and like you just don't get the same effect today. And I loved Across the Street. You already mentioned this scene when Bruno's he's got murder on his countenance, and he's just staring through those bars, and like the lighting when who's the big character? Guy.
Let's just call him Guy. I don't know what his name is.
The most generic. Guy goes over to talk to him, and just like that whole encounter, that scene just stuck with me.
I mean, speaking of the lighting and stuff, like when Guy goes to tell Bruno's dad about it, you know, and Bruno like sits up in the bed, it's like completely black. Then he turns on the lamp, you know, and he's like, oh, I knew you were going to do this. I'm like, oh man, it's so good. But I think my favorite Bruno stuff was just his presence at the fair. Well, you know, when she, like Miriam would look back and see him standing there, then like the
world's slowest chase scene.
But I think she's like, is this guy flirting with me? Like he keeps kind of following me around and
pops the balloon with the cigarette.
Doing that. Yeah, exactly. That was a great shot. And then like hitting the bell, I don't know, with the sledgehammer thing, and just all this kind of stuff. And I think she goes from maybe feeling a little paranoid to being like, oh, maybe this guy is like just working up the courage to talk to me. So I'll be a little flirty. And then I don't know. I loved all that because, like you said, it's like that thing where you can run as fast as you want, but the bad guy's just still there. Obviously, they weren't running, but wherever they went, he was just kind of there.
And how oblivious were those boys?
Oh my God.
Like she is the object of both of their affection, and they can't tell that she's not looking at either of them. Like, I don't know, that really stuck out to me. I don't know where you were going to go next, but I wanted to talk about something related to lighting that I was like so mad I didn't mention in our Vertigo episode. And I love Hitchcock's use of light in all his films, but do you remember the scene when they're in the bookstore, and as the book, the store owner is telling some
in
story
Vertigo? We're talking about?
In Vertigo. And as he's telling the story, the lights dim as it gets creepier and creepier. And then when they walk out, and then the lights pop back on. And I remember while it was happening in the moment, I was like, is this what he's doing? Is this happening?
Yeah.
I was like, wait, the lights are dimming. And it's like, I don't know.
Like,
I just thought it was so cool.
Alfred.
Was that his name?
No,
Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, yeah. That's the director's name. Yeah. Alfred. I was trying to remember the shopkeeper's name, but yeah.
That'd be cool if they just named him his own name.
It's a funny thing to say out loud, especially in a movie about podcasts, but I'm constantly surprised. Wait, did I say a movie about podcasts?
I'm just gonna let you go with it. But
especially in a movie about podcasts, it's.
Did you consciously just do it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I was like, wait, does he know it?
I can't believe how often I was surprised that Hitchcock was good at something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know he's a legend, but I think I have this like sort of condescending attitude towards films made in the past. A lot of people do. A lot of people disregard older movies. And I'm like, oh wait, they knew how to do this then? Like they took these things into consideration. Like for me, film was born in 1993, the first time I saw Jurassic Park, or like the first time I saw Batman. That's when they started making movies. So I don't know. It's been really fun to go back and realize that like there's been some true masters of this craft, and it's really fun to watch.
It really is. Like my dumb brain when that was happening was like, oh man, production, like the lights just must be going down, but this was the one good take they got, so he kept it in there. And then thinking about it after, it's like, no, what? Like, why would you do that? Like, this isn't a student film, you know? It's like, I don't know, we got the best take, let's just keep it, even though the lights were dimming. Like, I don't know.
It kind of works, I guess. It's a creepy story.
People think I did this intentionally. Yeah. One thing I did want to talk about was my favorite character, Babs. Barbara. She was something else. I could not figure out her age because when she made everyone drinks, she made herself a drink. I was like, I feel like she's 14 or something. I don't know how old she is, but she's like, yeah, I'll join you guys for a bourbon. She was awesome, but it was interesting for me to learn that that's Hitchcock's actual daughter. And I forgot to look at her name. Patricia Hitchcock. Exactly. Thank you. But I mean, I thought she was great in this, but in, limited research I did too, just learned that the cast and crew basically loved the way that she was treated on set. Like it wasn't any sort of nepotism or favoritism. Patricia had said in other interviews, like when we went home, we didn't talk about the movie at all. Like it wasn't just till the next day on set, like just treated her like an actor, which was great. But that just kind of got me thinking, like Hitchcock also has kind of a weird relationship, at least in the public eye, with his wife, because she was behind every movie that he did. I watched today his AFI Lifetime Achievement Award that he got in 1979, I think. And he ended it by saying, like, I just want to thank 4 people.
First of the 4 is a film editor. The second is a script writer. The third is the mother of my daughter Pat. And the 4th is as fine a cook as ever performed miracles in a domestic kitchen. And their names are Alma Ravel.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool that at least like he was finally able to like really acknowledge her. Like the whole movie Hitchcock with I can't think of his name, Hannibal Lecter. Why can't I think of it? Anthony Hopkins, yeah. And Helen Mirren plays Alma, and it's really about their relationship and how involved she was with everything. But all that said, I just kind of wanted to like have a lighter topic and just kind of talk about some of our favorite actual families in the film industry, and just who we like, who we know about, whatever. Tyler, I'm going to throw it to you for that.
Well, thanks. There's a lot of good ones, and you guys are going to talk about a lot of the ones that I like. But the first ones that come to mind for me is the Wilson brothers, specifically in the Tenenbaum movies.
Bottle Rocket,
yeah, Bottle Rocket, and I don't know. I feel like they're in all of them, but I know that's not true. But I really love those guys. Owen Wilson's great. Luke Wilson's awesome. And the Apatows, I think it's really sweet how, he puts Leslie Mann in all of his movies, and she's so awesome and funny and beautiful. And the kids are really funny, and that he allows them to do those things and say those things. And I don't know. I just think it's really sweet. And it's a plus that they're all very talented and also kind of annoying. It's annoying that they are so talented. They are not annoying. I wrote the Afflecks down. I actually don't know if I really care about them other than the Good Will Hunting. And by care about them, I mean care about them as working together. And I don't even know if they work together that often, but that's one specific instance. And I actually don't have any feelings about this next pair, but Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen I threw in here. And I threw that in there because my dad looks like Emilio Estevez, and it's become kind of a running joke throughout his whole life. And I'll try and find it so we can post it on the video. But a friend of the pod, Ryan Swenson, made a really funny Photoshop of my dad on Emilio Estevez's body. I'll try to find that.
I was just saying
for the viewers.
I know I did one on a slow day at Spotlight where I did the cover of the Mighty Ducks, and
you did too.
Yeah, I put your dad on there. Then I snuck you in there too, and I don't think you noticed it until I mentioned it.
Wait, maybe I was thinking of your Photoshop.
Oh, I know
Ryan. I think Ryan did one too. I don't know.
He probably did too, but I just remember, slow day at Spotlight. I was like, oh, he really does look like him. I'm going to do this. But what about you? What film families can you think of?
Why can't I not remember stuff that we did together, Ben?
I mean, I thought
you're such an important part of my life.
I'm the same way. I thought we went to every movie together, and
the first family that comes to my mind is the Coppolas.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that family tree is huge. It spreads far. We've got Nick Cage in there. We've got Sophia. We've got Jason Schwartzman.
I like your nurse's uniform, guy. These are OR scrubs. Oh, are they?
I mean, it's just kind of expansive.
And Francis. Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention
the oh, what's his face? Francis
Oh.
Ford.
I mean, I guess Coppola's cool.
I mean, whatever. He ranks 4th, but he's on there.
But I don't know
Coppola
how much...
Rushmore. Top 4 Coppolas, go.
I don't know how much.
Why are they all Sophia?
I don't know if there's like a lot of collaboration there though.
I mean,
I think Sophia was in Godfather 3.
genetically.
2, 3.
I think 3. She might have been in 2 also,
No,
but
I
yeah.
think 3. But then, you know, like I also think about the Coen brothers and the Safdie brothers and you know, I think there is something that's kind of special about a familial relationship and a shorthand and an understanding of how people's brains work that probably make it really handy to have as like a collab partner.
I'm embarrassed to admit on a movie about podcasts that I forgot about the Coen brothers for this prompt. I was like, how, like you said it and I just was like, I should just log off. Like, they make all my favorite movies. Like,
well, I didn't even really think about that angle of it. And then when you said that, it's like, oh, it's like the Russo brothers. They do stuff together, you know. It's like I thought about it with the Coens because, you know, actors get interviewed. It's like, oh, who you take direction from? Like they're both really just on the same page. So whoever you talk to, they have the same answer. So I don't know. Speaking of directors, what about you, Matt? Who we got?
I like the collaboration with James Gunn and his brother Sean, especially because like they needed a stand-in for Bradley Cooper for Rocket Raccoon, and it's like you have an Academy Award winning actor. It's like, who can stand in for this guy? My brother Sean.
Is there anything more fun than seeing him in like the green suit, like crouched down? Like it is. I love every single behind the scenes shot we have of that.
Oh, it's so great. I also like Ron Howard and his brother seems to
Clint.
We just watched Solo. And he's like officiating the match. These droids have never had it so good.
That was a spot on, Clint.
It really was.
I'm working on that. I'm gonna be Clint for Halloween.
I can't wait.
He's the flight controller in Apollo 13, right? Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's great. A couple others I didn't list. Adam Sandler puts his wife and daughter in his movies.
Oh yeah.
Now they've gotten older, which I think is sweet. And then, Tom Hanks. I mean, he only has a couple directing credits to his name, but I believe in Larry Crown, he fit in Rita Wilson. So
yeah,
true.
Chet did not make it in though.
I don't know. I hesitate to talk about the Hanks family because they're one of the Hanks family is responsible for White Boy Summer, which bums me out. I'll love Tom Hanks forever, but he brought that into the world indirectly.
But the other one is responsible for Orange County, so I think you can balance it out because that's a great movie.
My favorite Jack Black scene of all time.
Oh my God,
there's so many good ones, but
yes,
the tummy drums will never not kill me.
Sean, phone. Like, no, it's me. I'm just gonna be Orange County clips in this episode from here on out. Also Rita Wilson, shout out Mixed Nuts. But the one I was surprised that you left off that I thought for sure was gonna be the first one is our favorite siblings, the Gyllenhaals.
I was blown away. I left it off my list specifically because I thought you were gonna mention.
I know, because initially I was thinking director and sibling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Gyllenhaals, of course, if we're talking siblings, I mean, everyone has heard me say it. There's not a Jake Gyllenhaal role in any movie that Maggie Gyllenhaal wouldn't have done better.
It's very true.
I do want to see the Maggie Gyllenhaal Nightcrawler.
Oh my God, that would be so good.
I want to see that very much.
And the Maggie Mysterio.
Prince of Persia. Yep.
Oh my God, that'd be so good. Speaking of the MCU, mine first one I thought of was the Hemsworths, just specifically that scene in Ragnarok when the lowest place Hemsworth is in there, the one from Westworld. I forget his real name. The Liam's in the Hunger Games ones. I don't know.
Is it Matt?
Is it what?
Matt?
It is now. Matt Hemsworth. Old guy. So we gave directors. I thought about the Nolan brothers too. They obviously collabed a lot. Jonathan, speaking of Westworld, was a writer and producer on that, but together they wrote and directed Memento, The Prestige, Dark Knight Rises, and Interstellar. So that's a great duo there. And then probably one of my favorite ones ever in a movie is Ben and Jerry Stiller in Zoolander. I mean, that's just like a dynamic duo there.
And heavyweights.
And heavyweights, yes.
Is it also Along Came Polly?
Is Jerry Stiller in that?
Jerry Stiller?
I think he might be. And I feel horrible
Doesn't
right
he
now.
say bitches be crazy?
Quite possibly. I'm trying to remember his mom's name, Stiller and Mara. Like, well, because
Mira.
Yeah, I forget her first name, but like she's the one that throws the egg, I think, at the red carpet. I don't know. She's in that too. She's awesome. I kind of just wanted to end the episode as we're ending this Hitchcock round and kind of get everyone's general thoughts, either on this movie, if there's some stuff you kind of want to talk about that we didn't hit on, how you felt about the Hitchcock round. And while I don't think we'll do a Hitchcock round again, I'm curious if you guys, I don't know, if you're going to pick another Hitchcock movie, we'll work it into whatever qualifiers we have down the road. Curious to hear what you guys think. Matt, I'll throw it to you.
It's hard to want to move on from this round. We've done a lot of great rounds, and I've liked. I've liked every round, honestly, but it's fun to have these categories. I feel like I wasn't anticipating enjoying this round as much as I was, and I also realized that I've seen a decent amount of Hitchcock movies, but I didn't realize how many I haven't seen. And so I feel like there's work left unfinished here as we move on. And so I'm excited to revisit, to come back around. As far as last thoughts, if you're someone who loves trains, check out Strangers on a Train. There is a train in it. It's not about trains. Also check out the Apu trilogy.
That's a great train movie.
Please do pick out. Speaking of trilogies, that was
and the Before Trilogy.
I loved this round so much. And every time a movie was over, I just was like, kind of like you said, Matt, I'm like, damn it, I'm sad we have to move on from Hitchcock. And I mentioned to you guys after the movie, after we watched Jurassic Park, and I know I can pick movies outside of this podcast. I know if I can, but I'm just like, I just felt so sad that I only got to watch those three because it just was such a blast. And I've enjoyed a lot of rounds. Trilogy's round was really fun. Spike Lee round was really cool. We're having a blast doing this podcast.
Yeah.
We hope that shows through. Like and subscribe, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, please. But I'm sure I'm going to watch more. I definitely want to see like The Birds and Rope and Rear Window and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it is sad to leave it. I think we could easily do another round of Hitchcock and I think we'd be happy. I don't know if the listeners would, but, and on a last note for Hitchcock, I just think it's funny how much easier it was to get away with shit back in the day. Like, I don't know if that's just a thing they had to do for the movies or if that was actually how easy it was to get away with crime in the 50s. I'm sure it was. There wasn't DNA analysis and, modern day forensic techniques, but it's
Chuck that he has the lighter. He said he didn't have it. He doesn't have it.
Doesn't have the lighter.
Didn't you hear him?
There's a girl dead by the merry-go-round. Like, let's just let everyone walk about. Like, we're not going to.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Ask for witnesses. Like, we'll figure it out later. I don't know. It's too dark. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that whole thing about the lighter and having that be the proof that he did it, it was so thin.
So flimsy.
There's no way that would have held up at all.
Yeah.
And he just oh yeah, you have my lighter. And the motive. Me.
Yeah.
Just say, oh yeah, my wife took it. That's why it was here. Oh, okay. Got it.
Sure.
But yeah, there's so many things, with modern day stuff, where it's like, well, I guess there's no security cameras at the train station because that would have solved this, or now with movies, you have to try to find a way to make the cell phone not work because that just solves so many problems now. Like all those 80s movies, or Home Alone or anything like that. It's like, well, just call them. It's
or
not a problem.
in North by Northwest, they're looking for, I can't remember the guy's name, and they're already suspicious of the woman. I can't remember her name either. And they go into a room. It's like, is he in here? No. Ah, fine. Like,
Check
they
it out
don't
the room.
search the room at all. Like,
Yeah.
they don't. Why didn't they just search every train car? Like, it's just, I don't know,
Yeah.
or every room. It's just so funny to me. But
Yeah.
it's also believable, you know. Like, I'm sure it was that way, and you know,
It's true.
it doesn't. It's not like you know, it doesn't take you out of the story or take you out of the movie at all. But it's just something you note. Like, damn, it was a good time to be a criminal in the 50s.
100%. As someone who watched all three with us, what were your thoughts on the Hitchcock round?
I loved this round. I'm also sad that it's over. I thought it was a lot of fun. He's one of those, I think, filmmakers that is so distinguished and influential and huge. And any other one, like any other Criterion or AFI stuff, it's like, I don't know, this might be a little bit over my head. Like, but his stuff is so digestible and fun and funny, and so it's just been super fun.
That's a really good point, and I think it's one of the reasons I compared him to Jordan Peele, because despite how much is going on in those movies, you enjoy it despite not knowing what's going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas with Hitchcock, it's sort of the same. Like, you're enjoying it, even though it's a little bit easier to digest and figure out what's going on. There's not quite as much subtext, although there is some.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, it's not going over your head. You're not you don't have to like be a film critic to understand these movies. They're just really fun, and they're also just so goddamn good and well crafted. And it's it's a real testament to what the guy can do.
I mean, that was the most telling, I think, endorsement of this round was after we watched North by Northwest, when you were like, I'll come on for Strangers because I really enjoyed this. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, volunteered for a movie we haven't even watched yet just because of how the first two have gone. So I think, this Hitchcock round has been a lot of fun. I'm glad to say I finally have seen Vertigo in its entirety. So I love Strangers on a Train, and North by Northwest was just, it was so good to see that. The only thing I want to bring up from this movie is that that guy crawling under the carousel was not a trick shot. They actually made that guy do that. And my favorite line with Hitchcock talking about that is like, if that guy had lifted his head a couple more inches, it would have gone from a thriller to a horror movie. It's like, yeah. And
it's a really good representation of practical versus CGI, because now that scene would be some sort of at least some sort of like super imposition. Is that a word?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Superimposing of shots, you know, and
the dynamism wouldn't have been there if this was.
It would not have had the dynamism.
Would not have had the dynamism
that we expect from Alfred Hitchcock.
But yeah, just that dude, like, he worked at the fair, like he wasn't a stuntman and an actor. He's just like, I'll go under there. Like, okay,
so
cool.
Yeah, his line when he jumped under there was like, I can do it, and he does it. I bet that's exactly how it went.
Yeah,
Hitchcock's like, who the fuck is gonna do this? I can do it. It's like,
yeah, the way
perfect.
It's a good thing we were rolling, because that guy's just going now. But
that was live.
Well, this is canon now, I guess. Yeah, no, I've loved the Hitchcock round. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again, but definitely, depending on what our qualifiers are that we get into next, we'll be trying to find a way to get a Hitchcock into it, because I think the more we can see of him, the better. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so much fun.
But yeah, cool. Thanks everyone for listening to our Hitchcock round. We're going to continue our directors rounds next time. We are going into Kubrick, right? We're kicking it off with The Shining, I believe. We're gonna, next week is May the 4th be with you. We're doing a Star Wars episode, but after that, we're getting to Kubrick with The Shining, which will be a lot of fun to talk about. And then after that, we're getting to some of our not so seen Spielberg movies. So yeah, I'm stoked. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Anything you'd like to say? I know you don't want to promote your Instagram because you shut that down last time. No.
One of my favorite on-pod
moments. No, just as fun as always. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, I'm glad you're here. If you want to hear her answers to our guest questions, you can go to our Clubhouse playlist on YouTube and see how she answered all those. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for your support. Like Tyler said earlier, like and subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff really helps us. Just tell your friends about us, whatever you want to do.
Tell a friend or two.
That would be super helpful. So this community is growing and we're loving it. And we had our first in-person screening for all of our patrons, but next time I think we want to open it up,
so
so it felt so good to be in a theater, but it was a blast. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Hey.
Hey.
What's your name?
Joe. John.
What is it?
Joe John.
Name's Joe John.
Johnston, Joe.
You want to tell me what happened here?
There's a fire. I don't know. I came by and was checking out the fire.
Well, that lady, Mona, she said that you two were in the building when the fire started.
Yeah, she's a liar, because I don't know her. So whatever she says is a lie, so.
Okay, so you're saying you weren't in the building with that woman?
No, not I. All right. She started it, all right? Because she was like, I hate my job. I'm gonna burn this mother down. And I said, you better not. You better not.
She said it was an electrical fire.
It was. It was a total electrical fire.